Hey guys, how you doing? Taking a little break from the derivative series while I figure out what's next, and we're gonna go into something that's a little bit more hippie, but I believe very important and important to me. So let's see how well this is received. So this is going to be talking about mindfulness and trading. And mindfulness is one of the biggest buzzwords out there now when it comes to hippies and meditation and mental health and these type of things. So I'm going to try to demystify it the best I can and maybe try to give some advice and some resources for us traders to be a little bit more mindful. So what is mindfulness, right? It's the buzzword out there. It's everybody's talking about we should be mindful, we should do this, we should do that. So again, I like to very simplify things. It's kind of what I do. Simply put, mindfulness is being in the moment and focused on only one thing. So your mind on your task, right? How often do you sit down to supper and instead of being in that moment where you're eating that food and appreciating that one thing, you're focused on, you've got your iPad open and it's on CNBC or whatever, you're thinking about the future or the past or anything like this. It doesn't seem harmful at the time, but we know that ruminating on bad things, there's been study done. People who practice mindfulness have more gray matter in their brain. They age slower. Less stress related aging, less stress related mental problems, sleep and anxiety and all these things. So it's something that is very, very simple. It's just being able to focus on the here and the now and what you're doing, but very, very important, right? Again, your brain works better and you age slower. So really, what else do you need? So the importance of mindfulness in trading. So why is this important when it comes to a trader or an investor? Um, and so I talked about the slew of oncoming information and how important it can be to center yourself. So I know I do this mentoring, and you can email me to talk about it, where I mentor traders to try to figure out what's going wrong with them or what they can do better. And a lot of it is they come in with a plan. They have a written plan in a book, and they come in with that plan, and all of a sudden they're in a chat room or they're watching a scanner or whatever, and it shows them something that makes them excited and piques their interest, and then they do something off plan, right? So that piece of oncoming information makes it so that they can't focus on what it is that they actually came in to do, right? They've got, CNBC and Twitter and all these things coming in, and then that distracts them from their plan. The other thing is the acknowledgement of the internal voice. And I'm trying not to go as hippie as I could with this stuff, but have you ever just been staring at a trade or contemplating an investment and you're ticking your boxes and everything looks good, but you just know in your gut that it's just not, you shouldn't do it, and then you do it anyway and it turns out not to work. Part of being mindfulness is if you're in that moment, you're able to hear that voice a little louder. So, and it probably comes to the subconscious, which we know is a lot smarter than our conscious mind. It's seeing something that you're not. Um, and then the moment of instant regret. If you're a trader or an investor and you haven't done this, you will. When you hit that button to buy a stock or short a stock, and the second your finger comes off the mouse, you regret that. You know that this is now going to be a bad trade. You've done something reactionary because of you know impulse, because of anger, because of certain things. And the second you did it, you know that it hasn't happened. Um, get out of here, Twitter. Um, so demystifying meditation, right? How we practice mindfulness is through a form of meditation, and that's how you learn and that's how you grow. But when I talk to people about meditation, they think of a guy sitting in a lotus position in a corner with incest and oming and talking about his chakras and that type of thing. It's not. There are meditations like that. Mindfulness is not that. Mindfulness, you can sit in your office chair, at your desk, on your couch, and stay in your car for a couple seconds. You're not chanting, you're not no incest, no nothing. You're simply focusing on one thing and one thing only. And I talk about reps, which I'll talk about in a second. But the most common form of mindfulness meditation, I believe, is focusing on the breath. So, you can count your breaths, from 1 to 10. You can focus on where you feel the breaths the most, right? When you're breathing in, do you feel it in your lungs? Do you feel the air passing your nose? I have a bit of a beard and a mustache, so I can feel the air going past that, but it's focusing on that one thing. Now, Alan Watts, who's a famous philosopher, talked about if your mind doesn't wander when you're doing this, you're dead. Because everybody minds wander. I've actually introduced mindfulness to my father and my girlfriend, and they talk about, well, I can't, my brain wanders too much, right? And I talk about that as if that's like going to the gym and saying, I can't lift that weight. Well, you can in time, you just lift a smaller weight first. So you got to think about when you're doing this, when you're sitting there and you're focusing on your breath and you're focusing or a noise or whatever it is you choose to focus on, that when your mind wanders, you don't judge yourself and you just bring it back to the present, back to whatever you were focusing on, and that is the rep, right? So every time you do that, you're going to get better and better and better at it. You're going to be faster to realize your mind's wandered. So that's, it's not something you're just going to sit down and be able to do. And if you can't do it right away, don't get frustrated. It's like anything else in life. You got to suck at it first to get good at it later. And now here's where apps. So these are both iPhone apps. I'm subscribed to both of them. I like both of them. They're both great for learning. They're guided meditation apps. So Headspace it has a free program that's 10 minutes a day for 10 days, and then a pay model like Netflix. So you can go on and it's got like 1,000 different guided meditations, and you can pick one. I think you pay uh, $10 a month or something. I can't remember. Check out just Google Headspace and click on the TED Talk with Andy. It's really interesting, very good. The second one that I just started using, actually a client suggested this to me, which I really like, is Calm. They have 10 minutes a day for 7 days free. And then after that, they've got all these different free meditations. So you can choose, focus, sleep, calming down an emergency, these type of things. Her voice is very soothing. There's background music. I really like this one as well. But these are great for teaching how to meditate. And it's like anything else. You'll have to learn. Very simple, but you'll figure it out. So mindfulness throughout the day. So this is something I used to trade at a prop firm, and there was a guy who would, before every trade, he would clap his hands, and we all thought he was just weird. He would see the trade, he would sit back in his chair, and he would clap his hands, and he'd say, all right, let's go, and rub his hands together and put down the trade. I talked to him about it one day at the pub, and he said it was a recentering technique. So he would do it before every single trade, and it was part of his routine to bring himself back to the moment before making a decision. If you went and if you record every trade and what you were feeling at the time of every trade and every investment, you would notice that the ones that happen spontaneously are probably the worst. The ones that require the least amount of thought are probably the worst. So these are some different things you can do to bring yourself from that reactionary state into a more mindful state where you're at least aware of emotions that may be influencing your decision. So hand movement, I've seen people, again, like him with the clap, he brings them, bring your hands to prayer or whatever. Self-talk. I've heard Brett Steenbarger, who, if you don't know, Google Brett Steenbarger. He's the god when it comes to any sort of trading psychology, investing psychology. He talks a lot about your inner self and your self-talk. So, maybe you close your eyes for a second and you say, okay, Mike, have we done everything? Are we reacting here? Is everything thought out correctly? That type of thing. And a pinch. I've seen people pinch their hands or do some sort of actual feeling where they just bring yourself into this moment. So that may be it. No, and have a plan. Okay, so this is very important as well. So have a plan before trading. I meditate before the open. I meditate every day. I get up, I exercise, I meditate. That's kind of my routine. It's very important to center yourself, calm yourself, bring yourself down. I used, when I discretionary traded a lot, I would use trade ideas and a sound, because it can play a sound for an alert. So you can refocus and only react when that alert goes off. So you see the symbol come through and you hear the alert, and these were all back tested alerts. So I know that if I'm doing anything outside of this simple feedback loop of, trade ideas telling me what to do, me going to the chart, making sure it's okay, and then doing it. If I do anything outside that feedback loop, if I'm mindful throughout the day, then I see myself do it. Again, mindfulness can be used for eating habits and the way you talk to people, the way you react to things can be used for everything. But it's all about this feedback loop. And then recentering before, during, and after each trade. And this is something that a lot of successful traders I know do, where they will do something. Again, the gentleman who clapped before each trade. After each trade, he would jot it down in his notebook. He would jot down, what he was feeling, what the trade was, and how it worked. And in each trade, he would constantly talk to himself. So these are all things to stop the mind from wandering from the past to the now, to the future, back to now, and even off of trading entirely. It keeps you're basically just checking in with yourself. You do something to break up the monotony and to make sure you're making a trade mindfully. During the trade, you're talking to yourself. You're saying things like, okay, what's the SPY doing? Is my synopsis of why I'm in this still make sense? And then after each trade, you're doing a bit of a jot, a bit of a write. I traded this because of this reason, and this is what happened, and this is what I was thinking at the time. All things to recenter your brain to that moment and to that trade. So that's it. So, okay, that's the presentation. So again, I would try it. This is just the trading benefits. Again, they've noticed slower aging, both mentally and physically. They've noticed higher rates of happiness. People who meditate are just happier in general. Harvard did a study of increased brain matter. The more you meditate, the more gray matter in your brain you have, so just the more horsepower you got going on up there. Lower stress, which lowers a lot of other diseases, hypertension, high blood pressures, these types of diseases. All very important. All can be done with just 10-15 minutes a day. And again, the most important thing I think is to demystify it. There's so much hoopla out there of yogis and this and that and the other thing, and the way they meditate, whereas again, I don't do anything crazy. I sit down in my chair, I turn off my monitors, I press play on my iPhone app, and 10 minutes later I'm done. So it's an exercise for your brain, just like you should exercise your body, and it will 100%. I guarantee if you stick to a mindfulness program, it will help your trading. It will at least reduce the fact of reactionary and anger trades. So again, give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? And until I talk to you guys next time, trade safe.